Hello, everybody. Welcome to our July 26th, 2024 edition of This Week in Crypto. I'm your host, Brian. We should have our founder, Maxim, joining us in the near future here on the stream. And I will be going over a lot today, especially referring to the ascension that crypto has been on the last day and a half or so. It seemed quite a rally, especially during the time I was going to sleep. I really was not sure if I would be waking up to potentially 70K and beyond Bitcoin once again. But as it stands now, things are still shaping up pretty well, being up at 67.5, 67.6K at the moment. It was about 66.8 about 8 hours ago. And as far as I've seen, there are some pretty widespread climbs and market cap growths occurring as we speak. It's flattened out a bit this morning where I am, at least the last few hours. I think the S&P 500 and the rally that it could potentially go on may be giving crypto the boost that it so desperately wants to have right now. And obviously traders have been somewhat blindsided with, as we've gone over in the previous calls, kind of that bearish sentiment for a while now. It was only 4.5 months ago that we saw that 73.8K all-time high for Bitcoin. And the mood has, just to go over the past few months, the mood has gradually among crypto traders turned more and more negative to the point where it seemed like many were kind of feeling as though it was an inevitability that we'd go back below 50K at least for Bitcoin and, below 2,500 again for Ethereum. And obviously that didn't happen. We got to the high 50Ks, maybe 57, 58. And we saw a quick turnaround right around the 4th of July, aided by, real world news, a bit of a bias in crypto toward Donald Trump, along with some positive news with, of course, the near assassination attempt, the triumphant fist in the air, as well as his primary opponent, Joe Biden, withdrawing from his candidacy. So that gave crypto a boost, of course. But there are a lot of other factors too. We just had the US GDP come out with great news, showing that there's been a lot of economic growth here in the US. And of course, crypto is a global phenomenon. So don't get me wrong, this is not all related to just US news. Yes, the United States has a very prominent impact on crypto prices, but there are a lot of other factors. And we're going to look at a lot of stuff, including whale transactions, the accumulation going on for wallets that hold 10 or more BTC. That has a major impact on where crypto goes next. And they're looking pretty good from what I've seen. And especially over the past month when everyone was quiet and calling for lower prices, whales were saying, we don't care what everyone else thinks. We're just going to keep on scooping up all of these loose coins that the small wallets are dropping, and that's worked out pretty well for them so far. So we'll look at whales, we'll look at the social crowd and how they may have shifted over the past week or two, especially just in the last few days. Actually, there's been a bit of a shift toward bullishness once again. And we'll figure out what that means, how FOMO may potentially prevent this rally from getting too much traction. As most of you know who watch these shows consistently, crypto prices move the opposite direction of the crowd's expectations. So if you are seeing everybody around you suddenly say, all right, here comes the all-time high, then you sadly may have to wait a bit longer until that narrative gets a bit more skeptical once again. All right, with all of this said, a few notables here. So we're looking at the past week of price changes, and it's not all just one big party, because the beginning of the week was not nearly as fun as the last day and a half or so. even though Bitcoin is up 4.5%, you see a lot of big losses here. Ethereum had that big red bar a couple days back, down 5.5%. The ETF, yes, it launched at the beginning of the week, or the 9 spot ETFs launched at the beginning of the week, but kind of like we saw with Bitcoin, there was a bit of a letdown in prices after these launches happened. And it wasn't for about 2 weeks until we really started to see the positive impact that was back in mid-January when they launched. And then the very end of January is when Bitcoin and all of crypto began to finally take off. So could we see history repeat itself? Is the crowd actually aware of that last pattern? And are they expecting things to take off after the 2 week mark, right? A lot of that factors in too. But for now, Ethereum's kind of lagging behind a bit. Uh, and a lot of people are kind of wondering when it's going to wake up and start to at least trade in tandem with the way Bitcoin is trading right now, which is uh, wildly different. You know, it's not often that we see Bitcoin up 4.5% and Ethereum down 5.5%, right? That's um, kind of contrary to what typically occurs between the two top market cap assets. But as crypto has grown, we've actually seen a lot less correlation between the two. They still work in tandem in a lot of ways, but uh, it's a lot more of like a pick your horse rather than just hold on to both and they're both going to act similarly, at least lately. Solana here up 8.1%. It's had a huge week. XRP, another big success, plus 77.2 after last week, by the way, which was another big week for them. So XRP has been on quite a run as it goes for 60 cents and up once again. Dogecoin up 7.9% in the past week. Another great performance from them. Avalanche up 3%. These are more modest. Wrapped Bitcoin is going to match Bitcoin. Uh, Bitcoin BEP2 also up 4.5%. These all kind of trade in tandem with one another. BitTensor up 10%. That's a nice rally from them. I've seen a little bit of social volume rising going on from this altcoin in particular. We have Jito staked Solana up 8.4%. And then the biggest performer, probably one you haven't really heard of, and I've barely even seen much about recently, it's ARA USDE up 13.7%. If there's time, maybe we can look a little bit at this coin, which is a recent entry into the top 100. And then Thorchain over here at plus 7.1%, another good performer. Now, despite all this, the overall market cap is down 5.8%, which is also rare when you see Bitcoin up 4.5%, but the overall market cap moving down. Yeah, it means that altcoins have, on average, had a rough go of things despite Bitcoin's climb. So it's been a lot of solo Bitcoin runs here and there, followed by like some minor profit redistribution, and then Bitcoin drops again and takes the markets with it, and then it edges up again. So it's kind of a confusing time where it's really, from what I've seen, it's kind of exposed, you know, the traders who really know what they're doing versus traders who aren't. And obviously, you know, time for a plug, of course. It's a great time to be in crypto analytics and really be able to differentiate what's going on between all of these coins. And of course, we've got development activity where we can sort based on which projects are seeing the most improvement and innovation at any given time. Obviously, looking at daily active addresses, so many different metrics that let us get an edge in terms of which altcoins have some notable things going their way at any given time. You can see right here, as I sorted development activity, we've actually got a new number one, Internet Computer, way up at about 540 notable GitHub events per day, which is massive and way above number two Cardano. Hedera's dropped a bit to number three. Chainlink, Status, Optimism, Starknet, Cosmos, Ethereum, and Polkadot round out that top 10 there. Polkadot / Kusama, I should say, since they share the same GitHub repository. So overall markets are looking pretty strong, and it's been a pretty recent phenomenon where that's been the case. Now, if we go over to some of the key metrics here, looking at the key whales, as I mentioned. So this is going to include what I'd say most people are going to refer to as sharks holding 10 or more Bitcoin. So yeah, if it's a non-millionaire address, I think most people would agree this is more on the shark end, those pro individual traders who have accumulated some serious wealth from Bitcoin, but they're not, 1,000 plus whales who are moving the entire markets with the snap of a finger. And then we also have supply and exchanges down here, which is showing a pretty nice drop actually ever since going back to early June. So about 13 months. Hey, Maxim. 13 months ago, we've really started to see that pattern change and the supply moving off of exchanges once again. So I'm liking what I'm seeing with both of these lines at the moment. Sharks and whales have been consistently moving up and accumulating since the beginning of 2023, and supply and exchanges is moving down, decreasing the risk of future massive sell-offs ever since June of 2023. With that said, let's welcome in Maxim. I want to get your take on the markets, and how are you, my friend?
Hi, doing well. By the way, I have here a new microphone today in test. I don't know, how does it sound?
You sound good, and you've got a bird friend in the background too who agrees.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised there are papagayi flying here around, even though I'm in Germany.
Yeah. What are they called? Say it again.
Papagayi, parrots.
Papagayi. I've never heard that word. I wonder if that's a German way of saying parrots, but regardless.
I actually don't know. I don't know actually if it's German or Russian word. Okay.
But yeah, you do sound loud and clear. And
okay, cool.
It seems like the bulls right now are starting to become loud and clear too after this rally.
Really? Yeah. I just missed the first 10 minutes. I was finishing some product talk with our team lead. And so what you see on the screen, no, come back. I actually interested. I didn't look into this metric long time ago. It's supply and exchanges. Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah, so obviously we know that the percentages have a bit of a grain of salt to them, but the direction of supply and exchanges is more or less accurate based on the wallets we track. So I was telling the audience that pretty much since May 2023, we've seen a pretty nice decline in this metric.
And I didn't check yet. Do you have a separate chart layout where we have small hodlers in Bitcoin, if they continue the trend of decreasing their holdings or not?
Yeah, so I usually use total holders to just look at everything, but let's add directly onto this chart. So what would you consider a
starting? Yeah, like this, next, and next.
Okay, the first three.
No. The very first, no need. It's too small.
Okay.
Yeah, and another one. Okay.
Okay, so 0.001 to 1.
No, not combined. I like to look into them separately.
Got it. And do you want absolute or percentage?
Percent.
Okay. So we're going to add each of those three.
Increase and take the last 3 months. Okay, last 6 months is also okay.
Okay.
Because we're
last
talking about
6 months.
Yeah. So what do we see? The one in yellow, it's the smallest one, yeah? So still keep decreasing. Okay, blue one a little bit increased and mid-size increased. Okay. Yeah, no way in hype. We're not way in a hype mode. Okay. That would mean
not yet.
Not yet, exactly. Yeah. Because it's also end of the day metric. I think we're recalculating it every night. And based on today's action, they might change their opinion. So let's put it this way. If we don't see a spike on this smallest one, yellow line, as a result of today's action, the door up might be still open. Yeah. The door up might be still open. But if we see...
Maybe we can explain exactly why this is a good thing that the small holders are going down. Do you want to give a brief explanation on that, Maxim?
Oh, yeah, because they're latecomers. as simple as that. They're coming late to the party. At the moment, probably, and I understand the reasoning, and I think we covered it last week. Meme coin versus VC-backed coins, or let's say elite versus anti-elite, all this global process. So then meme coins, I guess, or some smaller way you can get 10 to 100x, which by itself is risky and still sign of top. But not ultimate top, which would mean that they suddenly understand that part of what they're doing has to be in Bitcoin. Yeah. Even though now when I'm talking about Bitcoin probably perceived as something for institutionals big holding. Need to think about. Maybe we should switch more this kind of analysis to Ethereum at the moment yet, because it's Ethereum more democratized. Or no, we don't have for Solana this date. Solana would be interesting.
Yeah, it would be.
Still, they're like latecomers. If Bitcoin pumps, it doesn't matter if it's institutional or not. They will join the rally. Just look at the line of the yellow line. Last time it increased. When was it? Just look at this exactly chart we're looking here. Exactly, yeah. So it was precisely top, and even it was increasing as we're already going down. So when we see this, exactly, and here buying the dip, yeah, and then actually selling before the top comes. It's very typical behavior, yeah. Quite typical behavior, yeah.
So these small wallets, folks, are generally regarded as kind of the inverse correlation almost, or like the FOMO lines when they go up. So when people are recreational traders and they hold very little relative to these whales, and they start to accumulate, it's kind of the novices, or the I guess you could call them suckers, that are buying in, hoping that prices are going to rise. And generally, prices do the opposite when the smallest wallets are accumulating. Not always the case. It's not a perfect correlation, but we've seen a lot of promise.
Exactly. There is no perfect indicator, perfect metric, perfect setup. I keep repeating, and I will keep repeating, always be aware of simplicity. Oversimplifying things means you're skewing the picture quite a lot. But understanding underlying psychological pattern, like in this case, the latecomers. Okay, so it's one part of the whole picture, and they are not yet into increasing their holdings. So we leave it probability it can go up.
Yeah, exactly. So as it stands now, the picture still looks pretty good. If you're expecting a rally to 70K and potentially beyond. As Maxim said, today could actually be very telling, because this is one of the more bullish 24-hour cycles we've seen. And if the FOMO really begins going into this weekend, it would mean there could be a bit of a halt to the rally for the time being. But if they stay low and it's actually a bunch of small holders that are selling and trying to take profit here, that would give way to whales and sharks scooping up those coins and potentially pushing toward that highly anticipated all-time high that we last saw a little over 4 months ago. So with that said,
pretty much
yeah, I wanted to also take a look at the correlation with the stock market right now, which is taking a bit of a tumble as of late. You can see the S&P, it peaked here about 10 days ago, and it's actually dropped about 4.2, 4.3% or so. As it stands right now, the equities markets have taken a bit of a hit with the dollar rising. We did get some positive GDP news yesterday, at least here in the US. Obviously, the world markets haven't really responded to that, but what's interesting, if we really zoom in here, just go to the last 2-3 weeks, the S&P really dropped here just 2-3 days ago, but Bitcoin's moving in the opposite direction. That's a clear-cut inverse correlation, albeit a very short-term one, but not one that we've typically seen much over the last 2.5 years, especially when the correlation got really tight in early 2022. We've seen crypto and equities trading very closely for quite some time. So when we see something like this, it's a signal that crypto is becoming less reliant on what's going on in stock land right now. And I
Yeah,
think this is pretty promising, Maxim.
it is. And always say the knowledge out of it. And we do like to share the knowledge which we've gathered over the years. Bitcoin is very often leading. I saw many analysts, they don't get it when they try to build a correlation between Bitcoin and S&P or inverse correlation. It's overcomplication in this sense. It's as simple as Bitcoin is faster market, smaller market, less regulated, but regulated enough to allow big participants. So whenever hedge funds or big players want to make or to place their bets on, and then basically you place the bets on the risks coming in the next 6 to 12 months, be it election, I don't know, any wars or whatever, or possibilities of economic growth, it's easier to do it in Bitcoin, and they will do it. And they have enough money and they see it. They know that if they're early enough, they can gain this 10-20%, which otherwise in stock market would be very hard to get. Yeah. Or you need to bet on specific stocks, and then you have exposure which is not balanced or like not diversified enough. And Bitcoin move. Just look in the point that Bitcoin moves first, S&P follows. Look in, for instance, 21st of July. Yeah, was it him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The moment Bitcoin started to move down, and then continued. Yeah, the first time a kind of S&P or gold, they resisted. They even move up. They followed. Yeah, it takes time. So it's actually, in my opinion, we need to keep observing it. Of course, maybe I'm wrong, but I do believe. You look into Bitcoin, you look when it moves, and you can even make quite a good bets on S&P and gold. If they don't follow, they will. Yeah, and if you see dissonance or like now Bitcoin grew a lot, so you can make your bet SPX maybe will follow, or maybe gold. Just by understanding that it's smaller, more volatile by the nature, and with much more aggressive participants in Bitcoin, and it can move in both directions. And also participation of the crowd, which you can move by some news and
Right.
misinformation when you spread around, and you can fuel your longs and shorts as a big player. And they do it all the time. I've seen so many
Exactly.
examples. Yeah.
That's the double-edged sword of
Yes.
the emotions that play into crypto prices. You know, it can shoot up a ton based on news that really isn't going to affect the stock market, but it can also cause irrationality and push markets down when the stock markets are not going to get that same pain. So if you can handle the big swings in crypto, you can have stuff like this happen where it just goes on a big solo breakout without needing much help from the world markets.
Exactly. So by looking at these numbers, actually, it looks to me we're back to topic of rate cuts. I would put it like this.
Yeah.
We're back to square one, which
Let's
was a
take a
kind
look
of
at that.
yeah. Okay. You have already some chart layout for it?
Yeah, so I had Trump and Kamala. Actually, let me bring that back really quick. We'll do a few quick topic searches here. So Trump and Kamala, let's not look at Trump coin, just the overall mentions of Trump. Put them on a shared axis. You can see how Kamala is expectedly, after she was put in the position as the Democratic leading candidate, obviously discussions began to break out with her. She's still not being talked about as much as Trump, who's just a magnet for news. But I would expect, as we get closer and closer to the election in less than 4 months now, we start to see a major level of volatility anytime big news comes out for either one of these candidates. And I strongly recommend that you bookmark a chart just like this. Obviously, this was when the assassination happened. It really began the initial rally. I'll switch
and
to
you know what?
Bitcoin.
You know what?
Uh-huh.
Brian, we have new feature which probably you didn't notice because it was hidden delivery of the feature. In the search bar where you have track,
Mm-hmm.
lesson track. Yeah, so you can save now all your queries, type whatever. Actually, you could make it one query, Trump or Harris or Biden. I think this will be enough.
So we do
But
it down
anyway,
here, right? Trump or Harris?
Just type in anything so that to show you how this feature works, and also for people who are on the stream. Yeah. So save it. Okay. There was another switcher. Anyway, now it's in your narrative topics. Yeah. So you
There
can
you go. So that's a great way to save and just like a template on Sandbase. Now you have kind of the templates right here.
Yeah. But if you press one more on track.
Up here?
Yeah, track. You see down right, show on narratives.
Mm-hmm.
It's even additional. Press now, save. I will just show you.
Give it a name again.
Yes, exactly. And then you see down left, there is some pop-up. It's a bit complicated user flow. Yeah.
Contains your entered social query. Discover the updated look.
So yeah, and then okay, it disappeared. There is. It's really.
I'll just do it again.
Press on the link. Yeah, exactly. You press on the link? Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Or you can go by itself. You see now it's on the list of narrative. It's on the top. You can see how it works with others. So this is the way how you generally can adjust, change, remove any of the narratives which you want to track. And in the current iterations, this is how designers decide to add. You can add your own narratives.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to make an upcoming video all about this new feature. I think it's a good one that gives you a quick way to just refer to any singular topic or compare topics. And you don't have to rely on just our suggested ones. You can now make your own custom ones, put them right here on the same chart. And see
there is disturbance in your voice.
What, did you say something, Max?
Yeah, your voice is kind of...
Oh. Why don't you lead for just a moment and I'll switch my headphone settings.
Here it is. Keep in mind this crypto narrative is oh, now maybe it's Max on your side because now here's my sound. Max, something with stream, I think.
My audio should be okay.
Okay, because I hear myself noisy. Maybe I heard it through Brian. Okay.
Am I coming in okay now?
No, it's okay. So this crypto narrative is a very advanced tool. I just wanted to show you that it exists. You might ignore it for the moment. Really, it's a very advanced, complicated analysis. And the easiest is exactly what we usually do. This social dominance, mind share of a specific narrative feature on a social context, which we usually show on over the price when you see it grows or down. This is should be your main area of research.
Yeah, I like it. I think this has a lot of creativity that you can inject into it to find some new
but needs time.
insights.
I'm still myself even not 100% sure how I can use it for trading decisions, where the usual search, we look for spikes or divergences or like pattern, how it was in the past. There, I know how to do it. Here it's a bit still more open space.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't know if you saw, but this coin OORT has really taken off in terms of social volume. they have a very creative $50,000 giveaway that they've been offering that caused a lot of people to talk about it on X in particular, spamming their hashtag a lot. It hasn't made much of a difference in price yet for it, but it's been hard to miss as of late. So they're the #1 trending topic. Dagida, which is related to a, I think, relatively new token. Someone may correct me, but Doga, as a new meme coin. It's mentioned alongside references to the moon coming soon to a crypto exchange and being described as a sweet, cute, huge, divine, and a queen associated with the Twitter handle Miss Dagida. So they've gotten a lot of traction. You can see Bitcoin and Ethereum here at #3 and 4. So there's kind of a mix of a few airdroppy meme coins at the top, followed by the two big drivers of the markets right now, with Bitcoin especially making a bit of an ascension. If Bitcoin's up here in the top 3, that means it's really starting to get a lot of traction, because this is based on the current social volume of different topics compared to their normal resting average, and Bitcoin already has a very high resting average. So lots of talk about Bitcoin. It's going to look pretty similar on trending coins, I would presume, with OORT. Actually, OORT just dropped out because this is a little more on the recent end. So OORT was more of a yesterday topic, but Bitcoin and Ethereum are very much getting massive discussion rates compared to others at the moment. You can see Bitcoin at about 55% positive sentiment, Ethereum 61.6. So Ethereum's actually getting more positive sentiment, even though it has been the far worst performer over the past week, and that has to be related to the ETF optimism that's been continuing. So, as I mentioned, it's been a bit of a letdown for Ethereum in terms of its price performance in its first week of ETFs, but why don't we look at the on-chain side for both Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we'll see if there are some emerging patterns going on there. Beginning with Bitcoin, we see mainly a big transaction volume spike that occurred about 3 days ago. This was Tuesday, followed by a bit of a drop. So there hasn't been, in my opinion, any serious divergences that have caused Bitcoin's price to shift in terms of trading or transaction volume. Circulation, same thing. We saw some modest spikes here on the 22nd and 23rd, but not really any major price reactions. Now, here's where I really want to get into it. The MVRV for Bitcoin, 30-day wise, average returns for anyone who's been active in the past 30 days, up at plus 7.4% again. It had already rebounded back. It got above 10.5% briefly back on Sunday before falling just slightly, and now it's rebounded once again. While long-term traders up at plus 20% now, I'm seeing a bit of risk here with them both climbing into not quite danger zones, but kind of an increased risk area for both. So keep in mind, short-term and long-term traders are now in a pretty healthy profit area. And ideally, we don't want to be in when the average traders are already well above water. Doesn't mean we can't rally, of course. We're not in like a crazy danger zone like we were back in February and March. But keep in mind that anywhere above 0% for both means you're starting to get into increased risk territory. So who knows? This could mean that we are in a bit of a short-term letdown area, but as long as these small traders are not accumulating and the sentiment is staying quite negative, we could have a rally to at least 70K, and then it's up to the crowd whether they want to allow Bitcoin to see a new all-time high in the next few weeks, or we still have a ways to go because they get too FOMO-esque. Funding rates are pretty boring at the moment, not a lot of action in either direction.
Nothing to see there.
Whale transactions, same thing. It's been pretty quiet. They're consistently, I don't know why it just disappeared like that. That's interesting. Oh, I think I accidentally zoomed in on like the last day or something. Whale transactions, yeah, it's been pretty, on par, the normal amount of activity among whales. Really, this is only a relevant metric when you see a huge spike, like here when they bought the dip, or here when they profit took pretty aggressively. So as of now, they're kind of just sitting and continuing to accumulate slowly, according to the other chart we looked at. The overall amount of sharks and whales, for those interested, if we just go 10 plus, and we'll confirm that, and then we'll also look at the two tiers that Maxim likes. Change this to yellow. Yeah, so this is kind of what you want to see. The sharks and whales are creeping up just a little bit over the past week, while the small holders, 0.001 to 0.1 BTC wallets, they've dropped pretty massively, actually, just in the past 2 weeks, going back to July 12th. There's been a drop of 145K Bitcoin wallets that are on that small end, and the big ones have barely moved, 8 less. It's funny, there's 152,870 total 10 plus BTC wallets, and there are 8 less in the past week. So that's about as break even as you can get. But at least in the past few days, they've actually started to climb again. As long as the gold line here is moving up or staying flat while the red line is moving down, that's a sign that the little shrimp wallets are continuing to doubt crypto, and the large key stakeholders are continuing to have faith. That's a good combination. Also, take a look at this spike. I would imagine it'll come down a little bit by the end of the day, but the profit to loss ratio for Bitcoin right now in terms of on-chain transactions, through the roof at the moment. For every transaction being moved at a loss right now, there are about 5.5 transactions that are in profit. Generally, this is a bit of a short-term top signal. When you see big profit spikes like this, you'll see at least like a temporary drop, and then it's up to the crowd as to whether they want to stop taking profit or not. But in most cases, there's been a bit of a halt to a rally on the very short-term end when you see a huge profit spike like this, assuming prices are moving up. Sometimes there's a weird profit spike while prices are moving down because people don't want to lose any more. But right now, this is related to a bit of a mini rally that we've started to establish. Age consumed and mean dollar invested age. I like this, the look of this a bit. Some of this was related to Mt. Gox. This was that initial trustee move for billions of dollars from the Mt. Gox wallets, where they consolidated into a few big wallets. But since then, it's continued to be kind of choppy here. What we don't want to see is just a continued rise like this, indicating that Bitcoin wallets are starting to get really stagnant. This is showing that there's been a healthy amount of dormant wallets continuing to move their coins around and bring older coins back into circulation. It's not exactly dropping down this line, but it's at least chopping and staying flat, indicating that we're kind of teasing getting into another bull market. We mentioned supply and exchange. There is a bit of a rise very recently, but overall the trend is still pretty solidly going down. So that's a good thing. I would just be a little weary of, this big spike. This was actually the largest inflow spike that we've seen.
But it's a good sign. No, Brian, actually it was a good sign, because when you see a spike on prices going down, it would reveal worrying when not panic conditions. So those people say, okay, maybe now I need to sell we will go down even more. So it depends on the context where you see this metric.
Okay, that's interesting. So
Yes,
you
yes.
view the supply and exchange inflow spikes as more of a good sign if prices are going down because people are capitulating, and only a
Not
potentially bad
capitulating. I
sign.
think they will capitulate if we ever go like to 20, 30, 40,000. It's capitulation, but they show signs of worries. So, or let's say they feel there is a need to deposit to exchange in the expectation of price potentially going much more lower. So, and if someone feels like this, it's a good sign.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective. I've always had more of a rudimentary approach to this metric, but I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. If you see the inflows as prices move down, like we saw back when we were seeing that mild dip on the 24th, we can obviously have rallies, which is exactly what happened. So I like the perspective there, and I appreciate how you're approaching that. And we did see something similar on May 30th, where there was that inflow spike as prices had moved down a little bit. We get a little flatness, and then we take off over the next week. So here's hoping we can repeat that pattern.
Yep.
Social dominance and for Bitcoin, it's not quite there. I mean, it's in the top 3 for trending right now. So I would assume like on the very short term end, yeah, it might be related to like a little bit of these spikes here, but I'm not seeing the crazy social dominance or volume in terms of discussion rate for Bitcoin that you may expect. Yeah. And then here we go. Look at this weighted sentiment spike, Maxim. Big positive bullish outlook all of a sudden. We only have this on a weekly end. Let me change it to daily. So yeah, same thing. It's all kind of happened just in the past 2 to 3 days. And we'll have another at the close of today, we'll have another one and we'll see how positive people are. I would be shocked if they weren't positive right now. But this is a very recent development. You can see pretty much for the last 2 months, we've been in negative territory, even as we started to rise, drop, and rise again. It was kind of traders being in denial. We had one brief spike here, more negativity. And then we finally, over the past 4 days or so, have gradually gotten into this positive range again. So I'm not sure how much this is going to immediately impact prices, but of the mild social volume that Bitcoin's getting, a lot more of it is suddenly under the context of being positive comments once again.
Yeah, short term, it's a bit. It almost looks like we want and have chance to break 68 or 70. So the 2 things happens. First, small wallets realize we're missing out and start accumulating, and positive sentiment gave it even more positive, and then we go down. I don't know. It's if a short summary like this. Yeah.
Exactly. I like to look at it more on the long-term end, and that's why I keep this on a weekly scale. Over time, especially on a month-to-month basis, when you see enough positivity, prices tend to go down. Enough negativity, prices tend to rise. But this is kind of a mix of social volume and then the ratio of positive versus negative comments that are happening toward Bitcoin at any given time. So it's more of like a supplementary metric, in my opinion. RSI, also a good supplementary metric that many TA traders are familiar with. Basically, anything over 50 is indicative of a bit of increased risk. It's more of a swing trade metric.
I would ignore it. Crypto is so strongly moving market. You need to literally take 80 or even 90. It's
just the extremes.
Like really extremes or divergences.
Yeah. So like late February was a good example when we were getting very close to that all-time high, that we were close to a top. Same thing here in November where it started to flatten out at least. So yeah, I'm with you. I think these extremes are really what you want to pay attention to. So watch for 80 plus or sub 20 as a good sign of a top or bottom there. And then total holders, kind of related to the small wallets that we were talking about, it had been on quite a decline. I mean, this is really a reflection of the negative sentiment that was going on. Tons and
Yeah.
tons of self-liquidations of these small wallets in particular, which is what most of these addresses make up. And really, it didn't change until about 4 days ago at the beginning of the week. I would actually have an interesting theory on this where it may be related to Ethereum wallets liquidating for the purpose of getting into ETFs, and in the process, a lot may be traded back into Bitcoin. And let's take, for example, like someone has $100,000 in Ethereum, and they convert it to Bitcoin, and they take the majority out of Bitcoin to get into fiat for ETFs. This would still leave Bitcoin wallets rising. So that's just a theory. I can't confirm it, obviously, but it might explain the timing of Bitcoin's total holders starting to rise once again.
Okay, interesting theory. Difficult to prove or disprove it. Yeah.
Exactly. I think in general you want to be rooting for this line to go down, and the trend is still pretty clearly capitulation and just small holders liquidating their wallets because they don't have the patience for this long kind of chop fest that we've been seeing. So yeah, Bitcoin overall, I think there's some short-term concerns with like really high profit-taking ratios on on-chain transactions. MVRVs are well into the positives once again. Let's take a quick look at Ethereum, and then we'll answer a few questions, assuming there are some asset requests out there. So Ethereum's seeing some interesting anomalies because of the ETF launches at the beginning of the week. We, of course, have seen volume pick up, transaction volume especially, big spikes here, indicating lots and lots of on-chain movement with the presumption of some coins moving off exchanges to get into some ETF exposure. Take a look at the circulation. This is actually getting close to the highest we've seen since the beginning of the year, with over 1 million Ethereum moving each of the last 2 full days. That was really the first time we've seen that since right around early March, right before the all-time high. Obviously, the context is a lot different right now than it was back then. But on the MVRV side, it looks a little better than Bitcoin at the moment. In fact, the average returns for 30-day wallets are in the negative at about negative 1.9%. Long term, we're still right around the same as Bitcoin at about plus 20%. So short term wise, there's a bit of an opportunity. Obviously, it makes sense with Ethereum lagging behind Bitcoin over the past week. But long term, it's kind of in that same risk territory where we'd ideally like to see the long term drop down below 0%, as it was right before that huge 5-month rally began back in mid-October. Just a few other notes. Funding rates, very slight positive bias, but nothing too extreme at the moment. Whales have really picked up. The $1 million plus transaction amounts are really climbing to close to the level we saw in late May. So keep in mind that even though Ethereum's lagging behind, the large key stakeholders are certainly leaving their imprint on some of that on-chain volume that we saw. And then similar to what we did for Bitcoin, let's take a look at some of those whale tiers. I would go right around 100 plus if you want to just look at all the sharks and whales together, like so. And then for the really small wallets, let's look at 0.001 to 0.1. And it's not quite as good of a picture, Maxim. I'm curious on your thoughts. Obviously, Ethereum's a much different ecosystem, but do you have any take on these two lines and how they might impact future price movement?
Well, we need to also keep in mind it's all about liquid staking. Yeah. But I'm surprised. Do you want to tell me that percentage of big hodlers is decreasing.
So this is the number of addresses. So maybe we do it that way instead.
Yeah, number of addresses, it's not so important because it's more like consolidating. But the total amount of big hodlers put into different liquid staking protocols or running their own nodes. You should take actually 10 and above, because 10 Ethereum, it's already how much? Is 35,000?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so we'll look at those 10 plus and 0.001 to 0.1 to represent the large and the small wallets.
Yeah,
so
it's
large
keep
ones.
rising. It just keep rising. That's why it's. I remember we did a chart layout. Maybe we can look into it more carefully next week. Remind me, or we can prepare it in advance, where we look into liquid staking coins. Oh, that's much more interesting. Staked Ethereum or Coinbase staked Ethereum or Rocket Pooled, because this represents a much more diversified picture and more detailed. If you take Ethereum per se, it's too. The truth is hidden behind these wallets. Generally, anyone of having 32 Ethereum and above, it gets consolidated over time for more than a year. So you don't see much. But you can look into the small hodlers. It's another way to see it. And so you can see that they're holding, show price on the chart. You don't show the price. And then you will see that they've been increasing as the price probably went down. Oh, no, they've been increasing. Okay, they've been decreasing. There is a correlation. I'm not sure about causation yet. Slightly increasing together with price, slightly keep increasing into falling price even, and then actually the fact that they're decreasing now, that's an interesting, it's more like a bullish sign. Why suddenly?
Yeah, I mean,
they don't believe it will go up, or what?
Especially when we saw that huge spike when the Ethereum ETFs were first announced to be approved in mid to late May. That's when they kind of peaked, and they've been dropping ever since. So they did not really believe the hype in Ethereum, and they took this as a profit-taking sign, and it's kind of just continued ever since then. Yeah, so that's Ethereum. Nothing really too crazy on the dormant end. Obviously, there was a huge amount of dormant movement at the end of March, but it's started to climb ever since then. Supply and exchange is moving up, unlike Bitcoin, so keep that in mind as well. I think a lot of that has to do with the liquid staking element and potentially traders wanting to get into ETFs, so moving off of exchanges or close to off of exchanges. Social dominance, obviously, a huge spike this week with the amount of hype around the ETFs. And total holders just continuing to climb, way more wallets than Bitcoin, interestingly. Okay, let's look at XRP. I saw that recommendation, Balresh, and then we will probably conclude. So any final questions you guys have, get them slid in now. Transaction volume. So let's see what's going on the trading volume end. We saw a bit of a spike on that massive climb. This spike here was, like a 43% jump all of a sudden a couple of weeks ago, and then it's kind of dropped ever since, but it was up to about 63, 64 cents or so here. And that caused, of course, a lot of volatility, but the transaction volume didn't really have any signals whatsoever of a rise there. Same with daily active addresses and circulation, really just no reaction to the huge spike that occurred. And then MVRV, as you would expect, that spike caused average trading returns to go through the roof. We got all the way up to about plus 28% for 30-day traders. And really, anything over plus 15 is where you get into a danger zone. So this would have been a sign to really be cautious and potentially take a little profit until things cool down a bit. And we're still actually slightly above 15%. So there are some warning signs with XRP right now. Yes, I know that there is a good chance that altcoins can get some benefits of profit redistribution over the next few days, with Bitcoin having a great ascension the last couple days. But I'd still be weary of XRP in particular because it just had its big surge a couple weeks ago. Long-term wise, it doesn't look too bad, just plus 7%, with XRP kind of being a mid-range performer during
What's
that.
about the social dominance?
Let's take a
We'll
look.
see if crowd catched up on XRP narrative, whatever it is.
Social dominance. So obviously it had that big spike on the 43% surge, but right now it's kind of come down a bit. This doesn't look like it's anything special.
And if you take last year or last 2 years, I want to see typical top on XRP on what dominance it comes. Okay.
Big in mid-July, that was about it.
And one top before, where I see also big social volume in May 23, I think. Yeah. How much was it?
That got up to about 4.6%. This latest one here was only at 2.95.
Also need to keep in mind that I think it was June 23 when we experienced shutdown of Twitter API. So the data before is not the same like the data we have now.
Good point.
Okay, that's important. Then we'd rather compare it in what was happening in starting from September. Yeah, exactly like this time. Yeah. Also take a bit more.
September. Okay.
Yes, still no. Okay, so. Yeah, okay. There is still room to growth.
Yeah, it's not really getting the hype.
Exactly. I pretty. Let's put it this way: if Bitcoin or Ethereum both manage to break the recent highs from the last weeks, I would assume market makers and manipulators of Ripple, if there are manipulators, I don't know. They would not miss a chance. They will push it up just to keep community traders engaged. And you can say that the beta here is stronger in Ripple on the way up now. So who asked the question? If you believe, based on analysis we've done so far in the stream, that Bitcoin does have chance to break above 70,000, yes, you can put on Ripple. It will, if it goes to the top, it will should be much higher social readings. So far, it's just a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and weighted sentiment still staying pretty negative here, so that's a good sign. Even when it, hold on, I gotta go to the latest. There we go. So yeah, we saw the positive spike there, but other than that, not a lot. It's actually quite negative right now, similar to what it was in June. So it's not really being talked about. All the eyes are seemingly on Bitcoin and Ethereum and a little bit of Solana at the moment.
Yeah, and all the meme coins, yeah.
Yep. Total holders continuing to rise. Nothing new there. Yeah, I think XRP is kind of a little bit under the radar at the moment. I wouldn't say that it's a huge candidate for a spike, but we've seen XRP have its own ideas several times with surprise pumps, just like the one we just saw a couple weeks ago. So look for social volume and dominance, as Maxim suggested, as a good leading indicator. I saw the recommendation for activity matrix. I don't think I preloaded it. This is kind of what we saw yesterday. It's probably about to refresh, but really quickly. Synthetics, active address leader, network growth, multi-collateral DAI, ergo, Chainlink I saw as social dominance before it refreshed. Really quick, let's look at the Chainlink spike. I think that's interesting. So if we go down to social dominance for Chainlink, and by the way, feel free to make a copy of the activity matrix. Just message us on Discord, and I'll gladly give you a copy of the model. And once you preload it, it'll just stay up all day long, and you can look at which coins are really standing out at any given time and getting suddenly a hot or cold network. So Chainlink, yeah, it has a bit of a mild social dominance spike right now. I wouldn't call this a massive one, but it's at least the most it's been talked about compared to the rest of the crypto markets since late May. So a little bit of a 2-month high right now. I'm not sure why. The price hasn't been going nuts or anything, but Chainlink always tends to have a pretty massive social media following. And being up at about 1% of discussions, there might be a bit of a sign of a turnaround here, because that's what these social dominance spikes do, is they very often change the direction of the price. And obviously the price direction has been mostly disappointing for the last month. Well, I guess I'd call this 2 months really, where price has gone down about 27%, and all of a sudden we get this big social dominance spike. So this is one to watch. Yeah, I think the activity matrix did its job here and found a potential turnaround indicator. But of course, that's going to depend on whether Bitcoin can stay afloat. I'm just checking to see if there's anything else that's standing out as the activity matrix is starting to load here. It's only about maybe 15-20% loaded so far, but maybe I'll give a quick screenshot in our Discord once this is complete, so you guys can have a complete picture on which networks are starting to get hot compared to its 3-month average, or just very cold and not getting much activity at all. But thank you for the recommendation. I'm definitely using this a lot personally to help find some good insights to share with the community. And you can do the same, especially if you're looking at altcoins right now to fill out your portfolio. All right, anything else you can think of, Maxim, before we wish our community a happy weekend here?
No. Just see over the next 2 days, let's say till Monday, if behavior of small hodlers will change on Bitcoin. I think that's kind of what I've learned from our conversation also, where we look.
Yeah, I think we've got a decent chance of seeing 70K in the near future, but a lot is going to depend on the crowd not believing the hype, right? If the FOMO really starts to take off like it's starting to yesterday, and we see another big like positive weighted sentiment spike, I would expect more likely through the weekend and going into next week we see a little bit of a cool down period where we either go flat or we start to fade towards 66, maybe 65 again. So the crowd has a lot of power these next 24 hours or so. Let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, it has a lot of power to reveal what's going on. Yeah, if they don't pick up yet based on on-chain what we saw, cool, it can break. But if they change their mind and you see they start accumulating a Bitcoin, okay, then stay away. Yeah. As of the moment, we can grow. Yeah.
I agree. All right, Maxim. Well, thank you for joining today. It was a pleasure talking markets with you. And Max Balresh, thank you as always for running the stream.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.